In Avengers Infinity War, viewers were left on a serious cliffhanger. It would be a significant understatement to say Avengers Endgame is hotly anticipated, but Endgame probably won't wrap the story up into the tidy ending you might be expecting. Here's why that is. While they share some similarities, superhero stories aren't exactly traditional action movies, especially when they're part of a larger and more complicated universe. Think back to the first Iron Man film. Structurally, it has the same format as Die Hard or Commando. The main villain, Obadiah Stane, goes against our hero on both a world-threatening and personal scale, manipulating his connection to the hero. They fight, the good guy kills the bad guy, and everything goes back to normal. Except it doesn't. Rather than ending in the same place it began, Tony Stark reveals himself to be Iron Man. That one massively important moment took the familiar-seeming, relatively realistic world we started with, emphasis on relatively there, and recast it as a world where superheroes were a fact of life. It's also a note-perfect moment for Tony Stark, which sets into motion a character arc that spreads over 9 movies before finally reaching its resolution in Spider-Man: Homecoming, when Peter Parker chooses not to reveal his identity and accept the fame that goes with it. From that moment on, the MCU stepped away from traditional action movies and towards being a big-screen version of a comic book in every way. That idea came to its thundering climax in Infinity War, a massive crossover that felt like it was lifted straight from the page. At this point, the rules have changed, and we're in superhero territory for good. That means that Marvel Studios and the Russo brothers don't actually have to end their story by the end of the film. Not in the traditional sense, anyway. Superhero comics are serialized. They're a medium specifically designed to always lead to the next thing and never get to an actual ending. Instead, the big shared universe comics from Marvel and DC are told as pieces of an ongoing saga, with each part connecting to a larger whole. So, if you're expecting to get to the end of Avengers Endgame and find the hero standing tall and Thanos defeated for good, you're probably going to be surprised. He's a big enough threat that having him out there somewhere, a cosmic sword of Damocles hanging over everyone's heads, creates a level of tension that could run through the entire franchise going forward. Of course, the MCU movies have never had a problem giving their villains a definitive end. Killmonger, Ego the Living Planet, and Yellow Jacket are all recent examples of villains who were killed at the end of their stories, but Baron Zemo and the Vulture were given the very comic booky ending of being locked up with a chance to return. Caecilius, Ultron, and Hela were all seemingly killed, but they're all characters who could potentially make a return. Thanos could easily join their ranks, whether through the kind of apparent and easily reversible death that we've seen from those villains, or by something more obvious. The good guys might not be so lucky. It's pretty obvious that not all of the characters who were killed off in the events of Infinity War are going to stay dead forever. Spider-Man's already set to appear in another film, Loki's got a TV show in development, and there are about 1.3 billion reasons for Black Panther to get a sequel too. But it's also a safe bet that not everyone will be coming back once the dust settles. The Vision, for example, was killed not once but twice in Infinity War, which feels pretty permanent, but there are plenty of other definitive ways for superheroes to die. In fact, a story like this pretty much demands a few heroic sacrifices from the good guys. The most obvious candidates to make that sacrifice are Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. They even have replacements already in place. Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson have both taken over the role of Captain America in the comics, and Jim Rhodes was Iron Man for a while too. Also, we know for a fact that there's some reason that Tony Stark had to survive the events of Infinity War, because Doctor Strange was willing to bargain away the Time Stone to keep Thanos from killing him. It's not hard to leap to the conclusion that the single possible future Strange saw where the heroes eventually win was a future in which Tony stayed alive, so that he could die at a more crucial time. Off the screen, Chris Evans has more than hinted that he's finished playing Captain America and starring in big-budget blockbusters, and Robert Downey Jr. was already in his 40s when he started playing Iron Man 9 years ago. With the most complete arc of any MCU character, it's easy to argue that Tony Stark's time is up. Over the past decade, we've seen the MCU build itself into a full-on comic book universe, and Infinity War was the film that brought each of its pieces together. But it only works if these movies give us events with lasting, emotionally affecting consequences. When it finally hits theaters, Endgame is continuing the biggest possible MCU story, and while movies like Doctor Strange were happy to hit a mystical reset button to fix things, we shouldn't count on this movie to do the same. Are the heroes going to win at the end of the day? Of course. Will Thanos be defeated, and will some of our favorite characters manage to fight their way back from their untimely deaths? Bet on it. But will we complete that arc that drops us right back at the status quo with evil vanquished forever and every hero happy? Absolutely not. And as daunting as that sounds, fans wouldn't and shouldn't want it any other way.